Hello and welcome to another edition of the Editor and the Alien Movie Reviews.
Yes, thank you all for joining us this evening.
Now, unfortunately, our plan to review Dirty Harry has gone awry. It seems that our copy of Dirty Harry is in one of the many boxes in storage after the move, and we can't find it.
No.
We just don't have access to those boxes right now, so unfortunately, we're going to have to put that off.
Just think of that ending scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that's the stuff we have in storage.
Yeah, unfortunately, the plan had been to stay here for 6 months and then go buy a house, but then things happened.
Yeah, certain things.
Yes, certain things happened.
Yes.
So we may be here for a little while. But anyway, on to the show. So rather than try and find a pale substitute for Dirty Harry, I thought we should go in a completely different direction and chose a film that holds a very special place in Kat's heart, The Craft.
Yeah, yes. The Craft is probably the film that I gravitated to the most when I was a kid. So yes, it definitely does have a near and dear place in my heart.
What do you mean by a kid? That's a pretty broad statement.
Junior high.
Junior high, okay. And
I probably killed my VHS, and that was the nice thing about this viewing was some years ago, Ishii was very kind and gifted me a copy of The Craft on Blu-ray, and it's amazing how much you can pick up not only in sight but in sound when you're not watching a crappy VHS full screen edition of a film.
I am glad full screen is dead. So, before we get started, I did want to tell the audience, for you who have questions about writing, about various books from 01, especially the Sadist Bible, stick around after the review and we'll address that then.
Definitely.
But to get down to business, give a short overview of what this movie is about.
A short overview. Okay. Well, for those of you who may not know what The Craft is about, it's about a young girl who moves to Los Angeles, meets three women who profess to be witches, gets involved in their coven, and then it all goes bad.
Yeah. That's the surface story.
The very surface story. There's definitely more to it than that.
To give it context, I believe this came out in 1996.
Correct.
And while this itself is a very enjoyable film, it was responsible for bringing us such wonderful things as Charmed, Practical Magic.
Oh, dear God, that film is awful.
A bunch of knockoffs that I can't even remember. And it's probably even responsible for Sparkly Vampires.
Partially, probably, in some small way.
But it's always nice to know at least the source material was good, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely.
So before we go into the deep dive still, I'm going to make a statement. Upon second viewing, because this is really the second time I've seen this film.
Real quick, from JC, actually, if you're talking Sabrina the Teenage Witch, that was an original comic from.
Oh, I think he knows that. I mean,
60s?
I think what he means is that show happened because
of. Oh, yeah, I agree. Of
course, Sabrina had a pancake addiction, apparently.
In one episode, yes, because pancake is code for smack.
Yeah, so nothing like seeing Melissa Joan Hart get orgasmic over pancakes.
She explained it all.
So anyway, upon seeing this for a second time, the deeper subtext, I think, to this film is, yes, it's a coming-of-age story, but I also think it's heavily about sex.
Yeah.
I think that's really, yeah, it's about magic, but it's really about sex.
I think it's about a lot of things, actually. And one thing that I really, really appreciated in this film is, one, the girls and everybody that you run into, though a movie interpretation, are all very honest depictions of high school kids. I mean, again, I saw this film in the theaters in junior high, and I ran it into the ground.
God, I was in college.
Yeah, all through high school.
I was in college. I'm a horrible person.
You're not a horrible person.
I married jailbait.
You didn't meet me till I was in college.
Yeah, that's true. I'm a dirty old man.
Well.
Okay, anyway.
But anyway, it was not exploitive in that way where these are, Hollywood teenagers. They were very realistic kids. I knew girls that acted like them. Hell, I hung out with girls that acted like these girls. So it rang extremely true to me on multiple levels.
Well, do you want to go over your theory of female power structures and how it reflects in this movie?
I can.
Because it kind of is the underlying, yeah, I think you should, because that's kind of the underlying way that you told me to approach this film.
Okay, well, everybody has, if you've listened to my rants, you've heard me mention the smart one, the sweet one, and then there's the hoe. That is the extremely base breakdown to female relationship structures. And no, I didn't come up with that. I got that breakdown from a comedian. I couldn't tell you who, but he said it and the light bulb went on. I'm like, holy fuck, that is so true. Okay. When you have female relationship structures in general, and pay attention because you'll start seeing it in your life. You really will. I know that there's going to be the exceptions to the rule. I know we've probably got some women here like Janelle who
are the exception to the rule.
Who are the exception to the rule. So please keep that in mind. Girls usually always wind up in 2s and 3s. Either you have the dominant friend and the submissive friend, or you have the trio, the smart one, the sweet one, and then there's the hoe. And the hoe is usually either, the bitch, or again, she's the slut. Either one of these three can be the dominant, but there is always a dominant female in the triad. And then from there, they break off into pairs and they talk smack about the one that's not there. So it's usually, again, breaks down to, a dominant and a submissive. If you have any more than that, you typically get
there's an imbalance, isn't there?
Well, you get odd numbers. Like if you have 5, you get 3 and 2, same dynamic. And the 3s will talk bad about the 2s and vice versa and so on. And you may even have, cross-contamination because they're a group of 5. But usually the group of 5 is broken up into 3s and 2s. If you get 4, though, you typically don't get 2 and 2. I mean, you do get 2 and 2 pairs, but usually it will break down even farther to where you have 3 and 1, and you have the omega girl, the girl that they keep around so that they can all talk smack about her. She is the easy person for them to compare themselves to and say, I am better than her. That is the dynamic with the craft.
So with that primer, let's go into this.
Okay.
The very first image you see in this film after some rock music video imagery is Sarah, our protagonist, in the back of a car driving to their, Hollywood Hills home? Well,
you got to step back from that, because the very first image that you see of this film is the 3 witches, Nancy, Rochelle, and Bonnie, doing a magical rite in the rain. There is a rainstorm happening at that time.
Which is science fiction. That doesn't happen in LA.
Of course not. And then, as Ishi just said, you get Sarah flying into Los Angeles. And what happens? It's raining. And it's showing, it's kind of implied in things that the girls have said, that they did a spell to summon Sarah to them, and the rain is the indicator of that. The rain brought Sarah to them.
And while she's driving towards her new home, what does she zero in on? The first thing she sees is a tree with a snake wrapped around it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, already we're getting that image, which then follows up to her going into the new house, which is a dump, going to her room, putting a photo up of some woman, going downstairs, and there's a bizarre homeless man at the door holding a snake.
And asking her if he wants it, if she wants it.
Right. And so, I mean, immediately there's all sorts of double imagery right there.
Mm-hmm. Which is, if you think about it, mirrored in a later scene.
Oh, it's mirrored throughout the film.
Mm-hmm. But specifically, when Nancy is holding a snake and saying, "You need to respect this. You need to respect the serpent. It's a powerful being."
So, anyway, at this point, she goes to the school. She meets the other three girls. She sort of is the odd man out among these four, and
well. Let me take a step back with that. It's very important to bring up because the imagery is throughout the entire film. She's going to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
And this isn't like, typically in these sorts of horror films, when you're dealing with witchcraft or, then they, the cults or stuff like that, they wind up going down the Satanism route and they put down God or they put down Christianity. One great thing about this film is that it doesn't put down Christianity at all. It
actually doesn't take any stance.
It does not in any way, shape, or form.
No, I really didn't even think much about it. It was such a background aspect.
No, the image of specifically the Virgin Mary
keeps showing up.
As well as the crucified Christ shows up constantly, especially in the magic shop.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out if that was supposed to be some sort of a Santeria thing.
I thought so too, but then I noticed that in the magic shop, she's got Buddha statues along with the images of Christ. And she's got images, she's got Bali demons, like the one that I've got. So and then with them talking about the being that they follow, I took it as these are all aspects of the same ideal, that it's not right or wrong. It's just another aspect or another way for you to communicate with this being is through this symbol.
That's probably the intent. I didn't think much about that because I've been in those kinds of stores before. And when you walk in, it is just a complete, I don't know, it's almost like a flea market of religious trinkets. It doesn't matter what religious, it's all there. Crosses, crystal balls, Buddhas, demons, you name it, it's all in there. No rhyme or reason.
Well, again, I've watched that film to death. I've memorized everything that's in the backgrounds. I've looked at
this
everything.
Is why I wanted to do this one with you. I mean, because obviously this is when you know inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
Later in the show's over, I got to talk about some of these visits to cheesy magic stores, by the way, or pagan stores. I've got some fun stories.
I've got stories too, but probably
they're just hilarious.
Probably not on your level because you were in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, some real fruity shit. So, do you want to address the Heathers vibe in this? There is a real Heathers vibe.
There is a real Heathers vibe.
Just not nearly as funny.
No, not nearly as funny. But well, again, you have the trio of witches. You've got Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle, and
the three weird sisters.
Well, they were nicknamed the Bitches of Eastwick by one of the other characters in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they are definitely not the popular girls, the cool girls, in fact, they're all completely ostracized.
Of course, some of them are working at it.
Oh, like Nancy?
Yeah.
Yeah, Nancy is totally working out. And yes, as it's been pointed out, Nancy is played by Fairuza Balk. Amazing role. She did an incredible job. And yes, I did know that she is a Wiccan in real life. In fact, she eventually bought the store that they filmed in.
Really?
Yeah, that is a real store.
But she'll always be Adam Sandler's girlfriend and Mama's Boy to me.
She'll always be Dorothy to me.
Kidding. Actually,
no, for me, she'll always be Dorothy.
The Craft was the first movie I saw her in. It wasn't Mama's Boy.
Oh, really?
Her playing the redneck white trash girlfriend in that was bizarre.
I still haven't seen that. I've seen parts of it.
It's okay. You don't need to see that film. You really don't.
No, she would. I usually hate child actors. She was great as Dorothy in Return to Oz. Not only that, Return to Oz is a nightmare fuel, but the kind that you love. So, but anyway, yeah, I love TikTok. I should make a TikTok.
So the turning point in the film, I think, the end of the first act, was they get Sarah to ditch class or ditch. It wasn't ditch class. It was just ditch out on everything. And they go down to first it's the fashion district. They go to the magic shop. They go to Griffith Park, I think it is. Well,
the point where Act 1 goes into Act 2.
It's when the homeless guy with the snake gets run over.
Exactly. It's they go to the magic shop, and it is established very early on that the owner of the magic shop knows that Nancy, Bonnie, and Rochelle are stealing from her. She knows that they come in there, pocket whatever they want and leave. And she's impressed by the fact that Sarah does not do that, and tells Sarah flat out, you are not like your friends. Which is, of course, very poignant. And then when they leave the magic shop, they're going down, like, basically Skid Row in downtown.
Well, it was it was actually the garment district.
Oh, is that the garment district? And I don't go to the garment district.
The garment district is right next to Skid Row, and when it becomes nighttime, all the homeless people come out of Skid Row and start wandering the garment district.
There you go. And
but that's okay, because that was in the 90s. Now the whole city looks like that. No, seriously, the whole city looks like that now.
I know it does, and it makes me sad, because I remember just 4 years ago, when we did conventions there, you could go out at night, and it was so quiet and safe. It was eerie, but I digress.
Okay,
so. She's starting to get mobbed by the homeless people, and she doesn't know what to do. The girls that she's with are able to just wade through them like it's nothing, but they all are flocking to Sarah. And then the same homeless guy with the snake comes up to her on the street, and that scene when it transitions from Act 1 to Act 2.
The guy with the snake comes up and says, "I had a dream about you. I dreamed you died." He bumps into her. She stumbles back, and she stumbles into another homeless guy. And do you remember what he says? He bumps into her, and she stumbles back, and she hits another homeless guy. And what the other guy says?
No. She doesn't hit another homeless guy.
Yeah.
What it is that the first homeless guy comes up to her and says, "Hey, no, I've got what it is that you need." And he's holding the snake again, and he says, "Oh, wait, it's you. I had a dream about you." And she freaks and backs up into a street preacher.
And he says, "You need to come back to Jesus."
Yes.
I mean, obviously make your choice. Was obviously what that meant.
And what does she do? She doesn't go in either direction. She goes across the street.
Well, she runs blindly into traffic.
Yes, but she doesn't go in either direction. She specifically goes, elsewhere.
And then the girls think that they willed the homeless guy to get run over and killed. And what was interesting about that scene was there was, one, they really seemed to believe it, and two, there was no remorse. They seemed thrilled about about him dying.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. What do you take from that?
Well, the three girls, obviously are excited, especially Bonnie. Bonnie, played by Neve Campbell, is absolutely ecstatic at the idea that, not that they necessarily that they killed someone. That part doesn't even enter into the equation in her head. She's ecstatic that they can just do things, or that they think that they can do things now. Sarah, on the other hand, it's very obvious that she's coming down from the adrenaline rush, and she's just seen somebody get run over, and she's just ran basically for her life. And now the friends that she's with are talking about how they can do magic and shit and make things happen. And then they start talking about strange gods and talking to them. And it basically her mind gets overblown with the fantastic, and she storms off angry, saying, "You guys are freaking me out. I'm leaving now."
Wait,
which is
Nancy, the loose cannon of the bunch, says, "No, you take, was it Nano?
Yeah, Menno.
You take Menno inside you, and he makes everything all better."
And that's when Sarah,
as she says, "Nothing makes everything all better."
And Nancy says, "Maybe not for you." And that's when Sarah checks out. And again, that is a realistic reaction to everything that's just happened.
And then in short order, you find out that they each have their own damage. Sarah's a wrist cutter.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Bonnie?
Oh, well, no. Sarah not only is a wrist cutter, she also has hallucinations.
And has attempted suicide.
Yes.
Is it Bonnie's the other one? Nev Campbell?
Yeah, Nev Campbell is Bonnie.
Bonnie has burns all over her body.
We don't know how that happened, but the amount of burns that she has, something horrific happened.
Rochelle is bullied.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't fit in at the school.
No.
And Nancy comes from a broken home and is essentially, if there's a vice, she's into it.
Mm-hmm.
So they've each got their flaws, and that quickly becomes established. We go back home after that weird night.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah is, again, there's a raging storm outside, and it's LA, so that doesn't happen. That happens about twice a year.
Well, actually, the very next scene from her storming off is her with the captain of the football team on the rooftop.
Yeah, that I forgot about that. Yeah,
and
he was lovably stupid.
Yeah.
I love how stupid he was. Believably stupid.
He was believably stupid. He was believably arrogant. And what I liked is that, he's an asshole. He is a total asshole.
Well, he kind of reminded me of some of the meatheads my sister hooked up with.
But by the end of things, you actually feel sorry for him.
It's kind of like kicking a retarded kid. I mean, you feel bad about it.
Well, no, it's, no matter how big of an asshole he is, he didn't deserve what happens to him, which we will be getting to. Should have said at the beginning, if you didn't know already, spoilers. Anyway. On the top of this roof, they're making out, they're having fun, and then he invites her back to his place, and she gets cold feet and says no. And then you get the fallout from that. Which is he's spread around a rumor to the whole school that they had gone back to his place. They had fucked, and that she was so god awful, he never wants to see her again. And, of course, in a Catholic school, if anytime anybody fucks, it's going to get around school. And this was a big deal since of his status, at school.
I don't know. I never went to a Catholic school, but that was pretty much the norm in the schools I went to.
The norm, basic school, yeah.
Well, the thing is, I didn't hang out with any of these types of people. I was, goth, industrial punk crowd, right? I didn't really have any interaction, but my sister played the popularity game, and so I saw this, from a distance, what was going on, and I have no idea why anyone would even delve into that shit.
I just remember, that shit happened in high school, and I didn't pay any attention to it. But when this film came out,
of course, you were the pre-Columbine kid.
During Columbine,
yeah, I know. I mean,
I should talk about that sometime. No, when this film came out, I was in junior high, but I was going to a Lutheran school at the time. So the fact
No,
that
that's a much better situation. Trust me.
it's a much better situation, but who's dating who? Who's potentially fucking who's potentially lost their virginity at age 14, and considering we had all known each other since, I'm not kidding, preschool, because that's how much time the school went by. I was there from the age 4 to age 14. No, it was a big deal when you found out so-and-so is cheating on somebody else, because we all fucking knew each other. So that kind of situation, yeah, I definitely understood.
See, there are two types of Catholic schools from what I understand, and those are the really elite, expensive ones that were like the one in the film.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the ones that were in my town. And there really weren't a lot of Catholic kids going to that school. They were all delinquents who were sent there to be, essentially kicked into line.
Schooled by the nuns.
And essentially it was a very violent school full of delinquents who probably should have been in juvenile hall.
They had the love of Jesus beaten into them.
They needed it. And a lot of girls, apparently pregnancies were constantly happening there. It was this, essentially, this kid's broken, take her.
So this isn't Girls Town.
No. So anyway, there's then a long sequence where you start seeing them getting deeper and deeper into magic.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the bus trip. There's the ritual and blood pact they have.
Mm-hmm.
They each start talking about their higher aspirations. Nancy's only aspiration is power.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the butterfly swarm, which indicates transformation or rebirth. Then there's a sequence of the magic and wish fulfillment going on.
Well, because during that ritual, they were starting, the ball rolling on the spells that they wanted cast to bring to them what they wanted. And, and so you do start seeing that seed throughout each of their lives, except for Nancy's.
Mm-hmm. And I thought it was interesting at the first slumber party, they're all watching Wheel of Fortune.
Yep.
But their wish fulfillment in each case, was it Rochelle? It's revenge on the mean girl that was bullying her.
Mm-hmm.
The girl starts losing all of her hair.
Well, and with that, one thing again I really appreciate about this film is we are so used to big, fantastic displays of otherworldly power, and the abilities that these girls start manifesting are not. They are impressive, but they're not big and otherworldly. Like they're playing, we all know the scene where they're playing light as a feather, stiff as a board, and they wind up levitating Rochelle. Things like that. And my brain fried and I totally lost track of what I was saying. What were you just talking about?
Well, they start playing with the magic. They start getting wish fulfillment.
Oh, yeah. The things that happen, A, start out subtle, and B, it is made a point, at least as far as for lack of a better term, curse that is put on Rochelle's bully, is they say flat out, well, what'll happen to her? Well, if she leaves you alone, nothing will happen to her, at least nothing good. And by good, they mean, she won't get her comeuppance. And so it's that idea of, it's subtly seeding the idea of what you put out there comes back to you through that little speech. It's put into the back of your mind that if you set something out, it comes back. And I liked that they did that subtly and didn't punch you in the face with it. So when they do get that speech from the woman who runs the magic shop, it doesn't come off as exposition. It comes off more as the warning it's supposed to be.
Well, Bonnie, she gets her burns healed.
Mm-hmm.
Nancy kills her stepdad.
And to bring up
and gets money.
To bring up with Bonnie, she gets her burns healed, and she goes instantly from being this little turtled in, meek, shrinking violet
to a slut.
Yeah, to a total slut pretty much overnight.
Rochelle becomes a vapid elitist.
Yep, she does.
So
she becomes the girl who was bullying her, because the girl who was bullying her was a vapid elitist.
And Sarah, pissed off at the jock guy Chris, wanted him to think about what he'd done and think about her, and he becomes obsessed with her, right?
No, not think about what he'd done. That's not it. That's not it at all. She wants him to legitimately fall in love with her.
Oh.
So that he would then, tell all of his friends, no, I lied about her. She's actually a good girl, and would go out with her because she still wants to jump his bones, even though he's a dick.
And
is it any wonder that his name is Chris Hooker? Actually, his name is Chris Hooker, but then Nancy later calls him a whore.
Yeah,
which I found that interesting.
But think about it. Now, this goes back to the the coming of age and the sex overtones. Is she wants this guy to want her, even though she has no real interest in him?
No, she does.
She does.
She does have
not
interest.
as a person.
No, she
just wants his dick, right?
She finds him attractive. Yeah, well, she's a horny teenage girl. Of course, she wants his dick. And he's a football player. She is turned on by the fact that she was watching him play football, even though really how he invited her to come watch him play was totally rude and conceited. But he's a teenage boy. Of course, it's going to be rude and conceited.
And like you said, Bonnie becomes essentially a vapid whore overnight.
She puts it, I spent a large chunk of my life being a monster, and now that I'm not, I'm going to have a little fun. What's so wrong with that?
And, we start getting more snake imagery, and what I saw again is sex overtones and double meanings in a lot of what was being said. They start all coming out of their shell. They start, the other girls start dressing more provocatively.
No, they do. And I kind of saw that as another reoccurring message, which is it's wherever you take it. Whatever it is, it's neither good nor bad. It is wherever you take it. And part of this is an underlying current of, yes, female power and, what it means to be a woman and have power and ability. And it is...
Well, it's a metaphor for feminine power.
Yeah, for feminine power.
And you start to see how quickly that can go wrong.
And
I thought no better than Chris Hooker.
Yes.
How essentially that was totally a cock tease and leading a guy on metaphor, if there ever was one. Talk about what happens.
Oh, with Chris?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, she delights in the fact that she's put this spell on him to make him obsessed with her. And it starts off, with basically where he can't pay attention in school. He has to look at her if they have a class together. And then he kind of becomes a zombie and does whatever she tells him to do, and carries her books.
And it kind of follows her like a puppy.
Yeah, follows her like a puppy. And she thinks it's cute and rejoices in the fact that she's made him a laughingstock at school, but at the same time is making him pine after her, and she's enjoying stringing him along until it starts to turn kind of bad, where he's showing up at her house at 3 a.m. and calling her at all hours. And there's a scene where she's on the balcony outside of her bedroom and talking on the phone, and he says, well, you look like you're so sad. And she goes, how do you know what I look like? We're talking on the phone. And so it's never stated, but he's out in the woods somewhere watching her while she's outside of her house. And you were going to say something?
Oh, no, it's just essentially by leading him on and literally making him obsessed
Mhm.
with her leads to.
Well, first off, she does ask the woman running the magic shop before this happens. She's realized, while this is starting to go bad, that she's done a terrible thing and she wants to try to make it right. And she asks the woman at the magic shop, how do I undo this? And she says, you can't. You have to let it run its course. You have to live basically with the consequences of what you've set out. And I loved that, because so often it's I got to undo something, or I can make it right, or I can make it as if it never happened. And she's like, no, you can't make it as if it never happened. And this culminates in Sarah agreeing to go out on a date with Chris, and instead he takes her out into the woods. Now, you all know my stance on rape. 75% to 80% of the time when you see rape in movies or in television shows, it's exploitive, it's there for the shock value, and it's there to show what a strong, empowered woman we've gotten, and it's a waste. This is not one of those scenes. Chris attempting to rape Sarah very much so is the culmination of his obsession getting to such a point where he can't help himself. He needs to have her in some capacity. Now, he doesn't rape her, and she's able to, kick him and get away. And that's the other thing, is she tried, to get away, and he pursued her, and then the struggle on the ground is very real. She doesn't suddenly have superpowers and is able to monster kick him off of her or anything like that. She doesn't suddenly have judo and kick his ass. No, she's able to momentarily incapacitate him and then run into the woods. And this where it continues to go is she seeks shelter with one of her friends and explains what happened, and explains that he didn't seem like it was him in there anymore, that it was that it was just an empty shell that attacked her. And Nancy, who has a past with Chris, already hates his guts,
but still wants his dick.
Decides she's going to go have revenge, not for Sarah. It's very clear. It's more what happened to Sarah is her excuse to go after Chris. And Sarah says no. She recognizes that he did that. Yes, he's an asshole, but he attacked her because of what she did to him. And she doesn't think he deserves any sort of retribution.
So do you think that kind of message could be stated today?
I think if it tried to, unless it was an independent film, it would be buried, because in this
in the modern woke age, it would be he deserved to be let along, he deserved it all, and then he deserved to get killed.
Yeah, because well, he has these desires in general. Of course he should be killed. Of course that he should get his ass kicked. It's like, you put a fucking spell on him. It's not his fault. It's like, well, of course it's his fault. He had the desire to. You gave him that desire. It's like, but
you filled his head with every signal saying yes.
Yes. And again, this film has personal responsibility.
You don't really see that in female characters anymore.
No, you don't.
Or consequences.
No, you don't.
Is that one of the reasons you like this so much?
Yeah, it is. It is one of the reasons I like this.
I mean, I'll be honest, I enjoy the film, but it doesn't speak to me like it does for you.
Oh, it definitely speaks to me on multiple levels. And I'll get into, almost all of the characters in some way speak to me, because I can relate to them in what their struggles are and their desire to get out of that horrible situation, whatever it is, almost at any cost. Not to put too fine a point on it, but as far as Sarah being so depressed and in her old place to the point where she was suicidal, at that exact time in my life, I was there. I was at that point. And, Nancy being in a broken home with, step parents and
Don Skanky, the brutal stepdad.
Yeah, Don Skanky is the brutal stepdad. Oh my God! Anybody, if you've seen the TV show Forever Knight, Nick Knight's partner Don Skanky plays the abusive stepdad in this film. It's hilarious. But it's the being from a broken home, being poor. The idea that you might not even have the power on. As a result of the fact that parents made strange decisions. I mean, yeah, I grew up in that sort of household, so not to that extent, but I had those fears and I had the.
No, you never
problems.
had a rapey stepdad.
No, I never had a rapey stepdad. Thank God.
You're very absent-minded stepdad.
There was a boyfriend my mom had who was less than desirable, but he wasn't rapey. But anyway, getting back to
okay, so characters you related to.
Mm-hmm.
Did you at all relate to the homeless man who wanders the street offering teenage girls to touch his snake?
No, the priest telling people to come back to Jesus. I liked his robes.
So you didn't relate to being a homeless man offering teenage girls his snake?
I didn't have a snake.
Okay, so before we go any further, there's a critical scene we need to touch upon, and that is the beach ritual, because we've kind of passed that. That is the big turning point. That's the beginning of the third act.
Yeah.
As they go to the beach, they have that great big dramatic ritual, kind of nodding to the Tempest in a way. And
well, the other thing with that scene, yes, the beach ritual is the transition into the third act. Throughout this whole film, we've talked about the imagery of the snake and how Sarah is afraid of it. And yes, that is a metaphor for sexuality. I'm not going to, say that it's not. But later, she's talking with Nancy on the beach while they're preparing for this ritual, and they've all brought different animals representing the four different elements, earth, air, fire, water. And Nancy has a snake that she's holding in her hand, and Sarah talks about when she committed suicide. She was having these horrible hallucinations of bugs and things, but specifically snakes all around her, and no matter what she did, she knew they were fake, but she couldn't make them go away. And
I mean, come on, nightmares that don't go away when you open your eyes are pretty shitty.
I'm not saying it's not. It is very shitty. My God. But then throughout this whole film so far, the image of the snake has been something to be loathed and feared, and it's all been Sarah's panic about it. And Nancy holding the snake says, no, the serpent is a very powerful being, you should respect it. And
respect the D.
No, it's the S. Anyway, but it's at that point that Sarah's mindset starts changing. And you realize that, yes, the snake is a symbol for sexuality, but the snake is also a symbol for her own latent abilities and her own powers and her own belief in herself.
Well, isn't that the point in which a girl becomes a woman, when she can conceive?
Yeah.
When she stops being a child and gains the responsibilities and frankly, the feminine power of sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And during or it was after the ritual, when Nancy goes bonkers, she flat out says that she's taken the snake god within her.
Yes.
I mean, come on, if that isn't, double entendre, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm.
And the dead sharks as a gift.
On the beach? Yeah.
And then she says, I'm your daughter now,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty bizarre. So another thing that I thought was interesting is when the magic starts to go amok and the mean girl that Bonnie didn't like, or not Bonnie, Rochelle, the
Mhm.
black girl didn't like.
Yeah.
She sees, Rochelle sees her in the shower suffering, just her hair, her skin peeling off, miserable, right? And Rochelle clearly feels bad about it at that point, but doesn't do anything.
No.
That was like the character, that was kind of the character defining moment. You're a coward.
Well, not only that, and this I got from the making of. They made a point in that scene that, she's so horrified by what it is that she's done to, I can't remember what the mean girl's name is.
Mean girl.
Yeah, mean girl. What she's done to the mean girl, that she looks away, and then the direction that she looks away is there's a mirror there.
Yeah.
And the mirror does not look back. The mirror does not reflect the direction she looks. And in the making of, they said the idea is that she is such a revolting person for what she has done that not even her reflection can look at her. And I thought that would very much so fit with the scene.
Well, the mirror is a constant theme throughout the film of
Mhm.
who the character is at that moment.
Yeah.
And that becomes more important as the film progresses, the idea of the reflection showing who the person really is.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. Them in windows. The very first thing that you see when the film opens is yes, it is a crystal ball, but you see the girls reflected in the crystal ball upside down. That's the very first thing that you see.
So now that we've gotten past the big ritual that kind of launched the film into the ending,
Mm-hmm.
And the sex and coming of age metaphors really become visible.
Mm-hmm.
Cover what happens to Chris Hooker.
Well, Nancy decides that she's going to exact fun and revenge, or fun in the name of revenge, really, and goes to a party where Chris is getting thoroughly trashed, and uses a glamour to make herself look like Sarah in order to fuck Chris. And then that fucks with him when the real Sarah barges in on them.
And I realize this really has almost nothing to do with the story, but I did find it funny that Chris was a juggalo.
Yeah, in this scene, Chris is not only getting trashed, but his t-shirt has a juggalo clown, and his baseball cap turned sideways
That just means dork.
Has a juggalo clown on it. It's like, okay, whoever was in costuming had a sense of humor. Also, there's a random character in the scene of this party. If you are watching it, please let me know the answer to this question, because I've been trying to figure it out for, I'm not kidding, 20 years. There's a person randomly in the hallway wearing a black dress. I cannot for the life of me tell if they're male or female.
They were ahead of their time.
They were ahead of their time. They've got long brown hair and a horse face and no tits to speak of. I can't tell.
You're a cruel person sometimes.
I am a cruel person, but I'm an honest person.
Now, when Chris eats it, when Nancy kills him, the clock very visibly in the background says 12:13. Did you notice that?
I did, because she goes in to start making out with him at 12:07. Sarah comes in at 12:11, 12:12, and then Chris is thrown out the window at 12:13.
Now, with all the magic overtones and lore in this, that could be tarot cards, that could be numerology. Clearly, the clock being that visible in each of those instances is a directorial choice.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why do you think? I'm sure somebody in the chat will say, okay, well, it's this, and this in Kabbalah, and that's why it references this.
I was honestly wondering if it was a witching hour
reference. Could be that simple.
Midnight and then 13. And that is the moment when Nancy officially goes over the deep end and kills somebody in front of Sarah. And Sarah knows, I can't be friends with them anymore. These people are toxic.
Okay, so that's about it for my notes until we get to the very end showdown and the scene in the magic store. So I would say go. Just what you want to talk about or comment until that point, because you know this film a lot better than I do.
Well, you start seeing the girls harassing Sarah in multiple ways, mainly giving her bad dreams and nightmares and making it so that she can't sleep. And then she goes to school, and everybody in school she thinks is talking about her. Whether they are or not, it doesn't matter. She's paranoid. And then the girls track her down at school, and they start saying things like, so how well have you been sleeping? And saying, well, what happened to Chris and to Nancy's stepfather, Ray, who had a heart attack. Those were just accidents, and that, nothing really bad happened. They didn't cause anything. And the other wonderful thing about this film, and I think I've already said it, is how almost subtle the magic is. If you were an outsider looking in, you would think that just things happened. It wasn't outwardly, X-Files level magic powers and, Harry Potter shit.
Until X-Files ran amok, even its magic was pretty subtle.
Yeah.
I think you're thinking more along the lines of one of those disaster follow-ups like Practical Magic or Charmed or...
Definitely Practical Magic.
The later seasons of Buffy.
Ugh. Yeah, we're not getting into that. Anyway.
No, see, I'm trying to prime you to a rant.
Oh, is that what this is? Is that what this is?
Oh, yeah, I'm poking you at this point, trying to
kind
of con you into a rant before the end.
Okay. Is there a particular rant you're wanting me to do?
No, we'll build up to it.
We're building up to it.
You already showed a little anger when I said Buffy and Charmed, so... And I know that you really feel like you want those hour and a half back of your life back for Practical Magic.
There were bad reasons.
Okay.
Anyway.
Let's finish this before I really run you.
Oh, God. So, yeah, basically, they are harassing her. They are stalking her. They are making her life hell. And she feels like there's nobody that she can turn to. Her father has been very attentive through this entire film. And that's the other thing is, I've heard people talk about how, this is a female empowerment film. It's like, no.
Not really.
There are there's female protagonists, and there's a lot of female imagery, but at no point do they say man bad or male bad. It's the fact that these are broken people who have come into contact with very broken men as a result of that, and bad things ensued. Sarah's father, on the other hand, through the entire thing, remains a beacon of, I would say, fatherhood, and showing that, just basically he's been her rock, and she keeps pushing him away through the whole thing.
I wouldn't call this a female empowerment film. I'd call this a female responsibility film.
Yeah. Oh, it's totally a female responsibility film.
Because, consequences and responsibility are kind of the theme through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, heck, that first scene in the film when they're moving into the house and the homeless guy asks her if she wants the snake, she flips out and yells for her father. And not only does he chase off the homeless guy, without a second thought, looks down, sees the snake, and kills it without a second thought. And so if you wanted to, you could say that's another symbol of her growing up. Is Dad's not ready to let Dad, of course, is being You're protective. Not ready for the homeless man's snake, honey. No. But she feels like she's got nobody to turn to, not even her father, who's been there for her the entire time. Now, I think there was also a metaphor there that there are certain things that a father just can't do for a girl coming of age. And you notice that she runs to the woman at the magic store. And the first time that they're at that store, Sarah tries to go in the back, that sacred room. And she says, that room's not for you. Yeah. When she comes back and sees the older woman, she's seeking an older woman for advice. Mm-hmm.
And the woman says, you need to come back here.
Yeah.
And takes her to the sacred room where she has her circle and her candles and her altar and all that stuff, and tries to essentially spell out the facts of life, or in this case, magic and responsibility.
Yeah. And again, in her sacred space, I really appreciated that she had, again, a crucified Christ and she had a Buddha in her sacred
but
space.
Why did she have Frida Kahlo?
Did she have Frida?
She had a Frida postcard in there.
I'm going to have to look for that. I didn't notice that.
And I was like, what the hell's that doing there? Do you really look up to the monobrow? I mean,
I know she had another Virgin of Guadalupe back there.
Yeah, they were all over the place in this.
Oh, by the way, I love the fact that on the side of her shop, there's this huge mural. And one of the things on the mural is this little vampire head. I love the vampire head. But anyway.
Well, isn't that on Hollywood Boulevard? Or is it Melrose, that shop?
It's on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah, that probably was just graffiti that had been there. That probably was not for the movie.
No, but they did a very big zoom in on it.
There had been a time in the 90s in which you could go through Hollywood and graffiti artists did nice work before it all just looked like what we got now. So really, after she turns to an older woman for advice and sort of listens, but then doesn't, you get the showdown.
Well, what happens is she gets scared. The older woman says, look, you now don't have a choice. You have to, come into your own and commune with Menno if you want to live, or you're going to die. You don't have a choice anymore. And Sarah is too scared to do it and runs away.
You've taken on the responsibilities of a grown woman. Now you have to.
Yeah.
You can't go back.
She flat out says, I don't. I think Sarah even tells her, I don't want to. And the woman says, there is no other way.
Tough shit.
Yeah.
And really, then things really start to pick up the pace.
With that said, one more thing to bring up. Earlier, before they have the big ritual on the beach, Nancy finds the book on how to do this ritual to, commune with Menno and to take him in. And when she goes to buy the book, she actually buys it. She doesn't steal it. The woman running the shop says, this is very dangerous. Are you sure you want to do this? And Nancy says, look, I'm a big girl, so just sell me the book. So again, it's that, shouldering responsibility, becoming a woman.
And we see something that she's never done before with Sarah near the end, where she tells her friends no. And this part kind of reminded me of kind of a phase that I've known.
Give context.
The three friends come into her living room.
Well, the thing with that is Sarah gets back home from the magic shop and she is told through a phone call with Nancy that her parents thought that she had gotten depressed again, run away back to where they had been living, which was San Francisco, and that her parents had gotten into a horrible plane crash and had died. And when she's told that, she starts seeing the hallucinations of the bugs and the spiders again. And it drives her nearly insane.
Yeah.
So when she finally shows down with Nancy and the other girls, it's right after they've been giving her these mind fucks.
Yeah. And I've only really got two observations for that scene, and they're near the end. So I really, again, I would say if you've got stuff to say about this, I mean, I've never been in a circle of friends in that situation I've never been a teenage girl that had to tell her circle of friends to go take a flying fuck. You have.
Yeah.
And I felt that this was prime rant territory, if anything.
Well, it's very obvious she doesn't want to have to do it, but she's going to, because otherwise she's going to die. And especially, and then when Nancy slices her wrists for her, and has the blood drip on a suicide note that's been pre-written, the look on her face is just, actually shock. Like, she knows that these girls are crazy, but she didn't expect something like that. And she again runs away. She runs back up to her room and flips out yet again, devolving into basically a little girl. And as far as what to get out of that scene, going back to my rule of 3, where really it's actually 2 with another girl, and the third girl is a Omega. Nancy shows which one of the other girls is the Omega of that triad, and she threatens to kill Rochelle next if Rochelle doesn't do what she tells her to do.
Yeah.
And that's when you see that dynamic break down, and you see that again, rule of 2, Bonnie and Rochelle are a duo in that respect, and Bonnie and Rochelle leave Nancy alone. And did you have notes for what happened next?
The only comments I had were about the mirror.
Okay.
And those were the two. That was essentially the ending of the film, the 2 shifts that take place.
Well, the girls are going upstairs and they come across a mirror in the hallway, and the mirror shows what they have wrought, and it reversed back on them more horribly. Rochelle's hair is falling out, her skin is peeling off, and Bonnie, where she wanted her scars to be gone, not only are they back, they're back worse than ever. So, all of her beauty is gone, and, all of Rochelle's dignity basically is gone.
But then also notice that at the very end, Nancy goes upstairs looking for Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
Can't
by
find
herself.
By herself. Can't find her. Looks at her. She sees herself in the mirror.
Well, what happens before that?
See, this is why you needed to talk.
Okay, I thought you were gonna have notes about what happened to Bonnie and Rochelle in the mirror.
Look, I told you, I've never had to tell a circle of female friends to go fuck off. It's a different world for men, so I can't relate to a lot of this shit. You're gonna see things I don't.
Well, that was the thing, though, is this isn't the point where she tells them to fuck off. Sarah does not tell Bonnie or Rochelle at this point to fuck off. She doesn't even tell Nancy at this point to fuck off. She tells Bonnie and Rochelle to fuck off later. And she tells Nancy to when they have the showdown. What happens is she scares Bonnie and Rochelle out of the house with the reflection in the mirror. And then she uses that time to call upon Menno. And that's when she grows up, basically, and comes into her own and realizes, hey, wait, I don't need to be afraid of this bitch. And she and Nancy have their showdown.
Yeah, but what happens is Nancy goes upstairs, looks in the mirror, turns around, and Sarah walks out of the mirror.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah walks out of the mirror after emerging from Nancy's reflection.
Right. And then they get into that huge fight. And how does it end? It all ends the moment she kicks Nancy into the mirror and the mirror shatters.
Mm-hmm.
And Nancy's personality completely fragments and shatters with it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really it for my observations on the film. I think that there was subtext at the end that you can speak to that I can't.
Well, again, the end scene is Bonnie and Rochelle come to Sarah, kind of hat in hand, and you think, well, maybe they have learned their lesson. Maybe they've learned humility, and they genuinely do want to be Sarah's friends again.
No, they come back even more pathetic.
Yeah, they come back more pathetic, and then they ask her flat out, do you have powers? Because we don't. And it's like, no, you're looking for your abilities again. You're looking for your crutch. You didn't learn anything. You didn't grow up. and Sarah basically tells them to fuck off. But the film ends with you seeing Nancy in a mental institution where she is thoroughly delusional and pining for when she had abilities and can fly.
So now that we've gone down this long journey, what's the number one thing that you took from this as a young woman when you were watching it?
Actually, the message of what you put out comes back. And my mom was studying Wicca at the time, and so I was getting that message from multiple directions. Not only that, again, going back to the imagery of the Buddha, one of my mom's closest friends had been living in a Buddhist monastery. She was a nun there, actually. So just hearing her talk about it and the teachings of Buddha, just that message of what you put out comes back, and finding out that the creators of the film, did put real rituals, and so this was not a bullshit Hollywood bastardization of witchcraft. This is actually lovingly made, and so I really appreciated a lot of the messages that were in the film, but mainly that responsibility of what you put out there, you're going to get back, and not in a stupid Hollywood way.
And in simple, brief words, tell me what your thoughts are on Charmed.
Oh my God. Okay, I actually did watch the first season of Charmed with Shannon Doherty, and I enjoyed it at the time, but I was also a freshman in high school, and I had no taste. I've since gone back and seen those episodes, and it's like, oh, okay, it's not wonderful. It's not great. This is more practical magic than it is the craft. And what it devolved into just is so stupid, especially the episode. I came across this one night where, like, apparently they become goddesses, or they wind up channeling goddesses, and like Piper throws a bitch fit because her husband, who's an angel, can't be with her and their child, so she's going to destroy San Francisco in a flood. I mean, it's like, what the fuck is this shit?
Well, okay. Oh, no, I can get behind that, though. I mean, that's not a bad idea.
What, destroying San Francisco? Oh, yeah.
In a flood.
No, I'm with you on that part. It's the fact that, like, her reasons for doing it. It's like, look, bitch, I know for a fact that you already knew he was an angel. You already knew you two couldn't be together, and still you fucked and had a baby. It's your own goddamn fault. What?
Okay, so how about the later seasons of Buffy?
Oh, I didn't watch anything past fourth season. Fourth season was so horrendous. And then when I heard that they did a musical episode, I was like, nah, I'm glad I'm not putting this in my brain. Yeah, fourth season was like, well, it's kind of good. It's like, but Buffy's turned into a whore. I mean, what happened to the girl who was, being very careful and saving herself, and then it was this like really sweet scene with her and Angel, and that made it so much more tragic when Angel turned evil as a result. And honestly, David Boreanaz was great in that episode when he turned evil and was, digging into her for the fact that she slept with him. That was awesome. But no, but Buffy croaked after third season. Anyway.
Well,
Angel was good, though.
I tried to get her angry.
Well, I'm annoyed at what happened to my favorite show at the time, but I've gotten over it. I found out actually through you that Angel was a good show. I watched like the first half of the first season. I'm like, this show is god awful, and you were.
Yeah, it was like the last two seasons were strangely enjoyable.
Amazingly enjoyable in the puppet episode.
Yeah, I think that's kind of hard to top. Puppets.
The puppet episode was great. And honestly, it had nightmare fuel for me in it.
Of course, I have a partial. I'm very partial to anything that takes a kid's property and turns it nightmarish.
Like Let My Puppets Come?
That's just funny. That's not really that's a fever dream, but it's not nightmarish. So
Five Nights at Freddy's.
I will go through and look for questions, but I thought in the meantime we should probably talk a bit about 01 Publishing's titles.
Okay.
We've had a few people who've purchased the Sadist Bible, and we're a little
yes,
wasn't quite what they were expecting. And I've got to say that one title is not representative of what we usually publish.
No. Sadist Bible. See, this is why I hate some of the terms that the media has glommed onto, because everything now is subversive. We're gonna subvert your expectations. Oh, it's subversive. Oh, it's subversive. No, Sadist Bible is subversive. It is subversive like old school Clive Barker. Okay, this is Cenobite level subversive.
I know that Nicole did not like my description when I said this, but I said it struck me as a story about a woman who got sent to the Cenobite realm and enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it is about that.
Of course, I think Nicole in a lot of ways was writing about aspects of herself and may not have wanted to hear that.
I think Nicole, where Clive Barker has his own views of the world and religion, Nicole Cushing definitely is looking at it through the lens of Christianity gone horribly wrong. And I mean that in the best way possible.
Well, I don't want to get too deep into her past because I don't know if it's mine to tell. And she was pretty vague about it to us as well. But she did kind of grow up in a cult environment, from what I understand.
Yeah, she did. She did. And that definitely comes out in her writing, especially the fundamentalist roles of man and woman, especially when you are married, and what you are expected to do as husband and wife. And what if you're somebody where those roles that you've grown up in that world, no other life, don't fit you. And that is truly what the Sadist Bible is about.
And I would warn you, unless you were a fan of what's called hardcore horror
and body horror,
I wouldn't recommend it. And what I mean by hardcore horror is there is a genre right now, and you can look it up. I believe Red Room Publishing is the premier publisher of it. The idea is it's horror to the extreme. It is not pulling any punches. It's meant to disturb. Yes, they're meant to entertain, but their aim is to leave you feeling kind of disturbed and disgusted with what you've read. It really is trying to push the limits. I would say if you really want a better representation of what to expect from 01 Publishing, for me, I would just say any of my titles from World War Kaiju to Case File Arkham is representative of my work. But either of our anthologies, the Whispers from the Abyss anthologies,
volumes 1 and 2,
which are Lovecraftian themed and more conventional horror stories, they're not vomit worthy.
No. And also right now, during the COVID-19 epidemic, Whispers from the Abyss 1 and 2 together are on sale on the 01publishing.com website. You can get both volumes for $4 right now.
And speaking of my love of things that are like child properties taken amok or going absolutely wrong, I've got a story in the first Whispers from the Abyss. It's the last story in the anthology about a clown at a public access television show that has kind of a Bozo the Clown type afternoon show for kids. And he gets involved on vacation with the Cthulhu cult and decides to use his show to indoctrinate children. I was quite pleased with the end result. People either love that story or don't understand it and are thoroughly baffled by it.
I know that for the first volume of Whispers from the Abyss, that was the standout story that
Really?
that people talked about the most.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
So if you're interested, that's far more reflective of what we do.
Mhm.
And I only wanted to bring that up because, as I said, a couple of people in the chat had mentioned they'd read it and were a little put off by the Sadist Bible. And frankly, I'm not shocked, but I felt it was only fair to tell people, yeah, you might want to be careful with that one. Now we get some questions.
Questions. How much Canadian media do you consume? Forever Night? Oh, see, that's a hard question.
You watched a lot of Canadian TV.
I just watched TV and then found out later it was
Oh,
Canadian.
was Earth the Final Conflict?
Oh, I loved Earth Final Conflict.
There was that other show you really loved.
Which one? What was it about?
Oh, Welcome to Paradox was a Canadian production.
I thought that was Australian.
It's a co-production. It was Australian-Canadian.
Got it. I know everybody talks about Twilight Zone and Outer Limits, and yes, those shows are amazing. But as far as the anthology TV series that has my heart, it's Welcome to Paradox, and it fucking kills me that the only way that I will ever be able to purchase it is as a bootleg. I'm happy that Amazon Prime has finally offered it for, streaming, but God damn it, I want it on my shelf. I love that show.
Although, despite your love of Canadian television, I just couldn't get you into SCTV. You said it kind of dragged.
Yeah, the pacing was kind of. I loved the Strange Brew.
Oh yeah. Well, that was kind of the standout skit. Those never dragged.
No, those were great.
How about Count Floyd?
I honestly don't remember much about Count Floyd.
How about the Jeopardy with Idiots?
That was entertaining, but it dragged.
Yeah, they did kind of drag the jokes out a little too long, but
yeah,
that might just be it didn't age well.
I chalked it up to it didn't age well. I mean, pacing is different now.
Baywatch
Nights.
How about Baywatch Nights?
Baywatch Nights was awesome. Oh God, I actually look forward to watching that every Saturday night. God, what was it sandwiched with? I think it was right after Xena. Yeah, it would go Hercules, Xena, and then Baywatch Nights. And then I think I had a half hour, and then it was Tales from the Crypt.
Which was excellent.
Yeah. I miss when we have an all-female film that wasn't just a male-bashing circle jerk. Yes, I agree completely and 100%. Again, as a kid watching The Craft, I just enjoyed how honest the film was. When I got older, what I appreciated was the fact that she has done this horrible thing to Chris, and even though it was awful that he attempted to rape her, she recognized that it's her fault that happened and did not want him to have retribution. And that stuck with me. That really stuck with me, especially in high school when I was starting to get that message of, it's his fault no matter what. It's like, no, if you're leading him on, not really.
Remember, you sat me down and had me watch the Baywatch Nights with the vampire, right?
Yeah.
And the one with was there an alien one too, wasn't there?
There was an alien one, yeah. Actually, oh God, was it that or
I Spy Guy? Tell me about Dark Matter. I only got to see the pilot. How is that?
Yeah.
You also liked She-Wolf of London.
Oh God. Okay. Yes, I enjoyed She-Wolf of London. But
I believe that was a Canadian production or a co-production with the UK.
It was, and my story about that is hilarious because it is yet another night where we were all going to do an all-nighter gaming session, and we had been doing World of Darkness, and about 2 a.m. is when we hit our limit. You know, we ran out of Surge, because Surge was still around at the time. We didn't have any more candy. And we're like, well, none of us want to go to bed. It's just we're too tired to continue gaming. Let's see what's on TV. And we came across a She-Wolf of London marathon on Sci-Fi Channel, and we watched it till the sun came up. It's hilarious.
Okay, we've got one question of how do you name characters? I think that's what it is.
Oh,
Trying to find it.
How do you name your character? That's a very good question.
Really, for a lot of the characters, it's just immediately what comes to mind. I will try not to think about it.
He seems like a Dave.
I'll just toss onto the page what feels right, and if it needs to change later, I'll change it later. That's usually how I do it. I mean, for Case File Arkham, Hank Flynn, that was a little more planned. And the reason I did that is I wanted, you know, Hank Henry, a kind of a tough guy name from the something that you would expect from the 50s. I mean, there was Henry Ford, and there was so many Henrys that were leading men back in the 40s that seemed to fit. And
Indiana Jones's real name is Henry.
Yeah, Henry Jones. And then Flynn, he needed to be Irish. So essentially, he needed to be Irish. I didn't want to make him a Mick or an O. So Flynn's a good Irish name. And who couldn't have a nod to Tron? I'm not kidding. I just figured, hey, why not? No one's going to catch it. Flynn's Arcade.
Okay, cool.
I know Patrick wasn't really a fan of the name, but I don't think he could separate the name Hank from the Venture Brothers.
Oh, was that why? Okay.
But yeah, you know, Hank Flynn just struck me as such a meat and potatoes working class name. And I didn't want something silly, you know, like, you know, Rich Derringer or
Dick Steele.
Yeah, Dick Steele, Mike Hammer. I didn't want something that was overplayed. I just wanted kind of a working blue collar name. That was simple.
Cool.
But usually the names, it's whatever comes to mind immediately, and that's it. I try not to think about it.
Usually the first name that pops into your head for a particular character? Or?
Yeah. I mean, with the current story I'm writing, there's a naming convention I'm using, and it has to do with, oh God, this kind of gets into deep lore of the mythology of the story, but it's got this whole idea that because of there was a war, there aren't enough men in this futuristic setting, and to fill the labor gaps, because they're afraid of using intelligent machines, they've started indenturing teenagers and children. And they have these academies, essentially, that take children, train them for a job, and then cybernetically alter them for that job. And they give them new names, and each academy has a naming convention. And the one that the main character's from takes all of its names from Western, or from fairy tales and nursery rhymes. Another academy takes their names from, cute small furry animals. Another one, it's agrarian terms. Another one, it was gods of the sea and nautical gods. So that is a very specific naming convention. But for all the characters who aren't part of that naming convention, they tend to get whatever comes to mind. You know, Miko Nakamura was just an off the top of my head, it sounded good. There was no thought put into it.
Cool.
Do you have any other questions of characters I've named?
I'm trying to think. Well, like in Utopia, it's how did you come up with the name Jed Eckert?
I wanted that to be a nod to a film that I feel is horribly underrated and nowadays far more timely than we ever thought, and that's Red Dawn.
Oh, okay.
And that was the hero in Red Dawn, was Jed Eckert, played by Patrick Swayze. And the reason I say that it's more timely than ever was that the original plot for Red Dawn wasn't that the Russians invade. The plot was that communism had taken over the United States. But the studio said no one will believe that with Reagan being president. So they cooked up this plot of the Russians invading. But, you know, kind of looking at the certain parties right now with AOC and the squad and Bernie. Oh, maybe communism's not all that outlandish after all. Look at Antifa.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted a name that was very all-American, that called to mind 80s action heroes, and I like Red Dawn.
Avenge me, boys.
Yeah. Oh, that was Harry Dean Stanton.
Mm-hmm.
Great actor.
Wonderful actor.
All right, so let's see if there's anything else before we wrap this up.
Okay. Dandy, isn't that the names for Gunstar Heroes or some Sega game?
I have no idea.
He's referring to Dandy Spike. I once considered naming my characters blue, red, and yellow. Imaginative, I know. It just reminds me of was it mustard and what was it? It wasn't ketchup. What did they call it?
No, that I came up with it. What it was in Mortal Kombat, the two robots, before they gave them names, because they were red and yellow, they called them mustard and ketchup. And I jokingly kept calling the yellow one mustard. That was just me shooting my mouth off while we played.
Oh, that was you. Okay.
Yeah, we used to go at it like crazy with Mortal Kombat. Which one was that?
Annihilation.
Yeah, that was great. Too bad that franchise sucks now.
Well, that and the Xbox, we're now breathing, so
yeah,
it died in the fire. Yeah. Ishi, I noticed that Flynn some.
Okay. I
had a question for Kat, but I can't remember it. I was thinking up a character backstory for a D&D character. Shoot me the question anytime, either on one of these shows, or if you catch me on Twitter, it's at @cat_AiA. Flynn looked like Robert Mitchum. Was that intentional?
Oh, without a doubt. One thing that I did with Case File Arkham, and I really hope that if I ever find an artist for that and get that going, I mean, there is someone I think that could do it that I should have followed up on, but I talked about that in a different episode why I needed to step away for some time. I hope that when I come back to it, I find someone who can do those likenesses again. But for Case File Arkham, I really wanted it to feel like this was a movie from the 40s. And so a lot of the characters were purposely made to look like actors that were in those films at the time. So yeah, the Robert Mitchum was intentional through and through. And Asnith was based on Ella Raines, and Thurber was based on oh God, I can't think of his name.
Peter Lorre?
Yeah, based on Peter Lorre, and there was
Kurt Douglas.
Kurt Douglas was it? Yeah, I mean, I purposely went out of my way, and often I would find references of when these guys actually showed up in noir films for reference. So yeah, that was entirely intentional. And it was the same thing with the lighting and the angles. Is I really wanted this to feel like it had come from the 1940s. So guilty as charged. Yeah, man, this is always the best part, is just answering random questions from the...
Was Lex Canadian?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. I did not watch that.
Kat?
Anyone remember Kindred the Erased? Oh, Janelle, I have my original box set. I remember when it first aired. I watched it when it first aired and was sad when it stopped. I really should, get the latest edition that came out, because like I said, my box set was the very first one that came out, and I think they just dumped it onto discs and really didn't give a shit, because one of them keeps skipping. But oh God, I love Kindred. It really is such a shame that the actor who played Julian Luna died, and that's why it ended. They were going to do more, and he died in a motorcycle accident, I think.
And we've talked quite a bit about this. For the time being, we're going to be doing cult films and films that everyone hopefully has recognized, or it has a buzz around it and enough people have seen it. But once this specific show gets a large enough audience, we really want to start exposing the audience to rarer gems that may not have been heard of.
Prophet.
And yeah, I think definitely the Kindred the Embrace needs to be
Kindred Theme-based. Prophet's another Canadian production. Definitely, you got to see it. It's got one of the best pieces of cyberpunk since Max Headroom. You know, Kat, did you like Visions of Escaflowne? I enjoyed it.
Was that the one we saw in the theater?
I think that was the one we saw in the theater. I definitely enjoyed it. My problem with Escaflowne is, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a bad series, but I was looking for a certain type of giant robot experience when I saw it, and Escaflowne was not it. The artwork I thought was beautiful, though. You guys think that using photos for scenarios are a valid decision, or is it a cheap trick?
What do you mean by scenarios?
Like maybe taking a photograph and drawing on top of it for the backgrounds?
I don't know. Explain, Elton.
There's nothing wrong with using photo reference. Any artist who tells you, oh, I don't use photo reference, they are fucking lying.
Yeah.
You know, every artist uses photo reference. Even cartoonists use photo reference.
Especially cartoonists.
Yeah.
Rotoscoping?
Oh, yeah, totally. No, when I was taking cartooning with Court at Watts Atelier, he showed us, okay, here's a photo. Here's that photo turned into a cartoon. And we had an entire section of the class devoted to, doing extremes based on photo reference. So, yeah.
Owen, DM me a link to either some sort of online portfolio you have. Even if your style doesn't work, I'd love to see what you do.
I think I have seen Owen's stuff. Owen's got a good eye for panels and, what makes a dynamic picture. Kindred and Prophet, Goog. Awesome.
Okay, I think we're running out of them here. I think the other thing is I lost it, but Owen, yeah, we will get to Guyver. And like I said, we want to bring you on for that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you would like us to come on tomorrow, we could do another just Q&A show where we talk about random stuff. We didn't really get to do that this week. It's kind of a strange week.
We can definitely do that.
So thank you for joining us. Hopefully for those who have not seen The Craft, you'll have an interesting film to watch. And for those who have seen it, hopefully we opened your mind to something about it.
And next week, we are going to have Lance Axe from Pocket Universe Productions on as a very special guest. We're going to hang out with him. We're going to interview him, and we're going to chat. He was very kind and provided to us some samples of some of the productions that they have been doing with Audible, specifically EC Comics Presents. But we've been having a problem with getting that to play for you all. So go to audible.com and check out EC Comics Presents. That will give you an idea of the stuff that Pocket Universe does. Also, Pocket Universe did the Titanium Rain audio drama, which you can also get from Amazon.com and from Audible.
Just as a favor to me, if any of you have gotten the Titanium Rain audio drama, please go to Amazon or Audible and review it, because for some reason, Amazon took down all the good reviews, and the only review we have is really negative. And it's hurting our sales. And it really sucks that when people go see it, they see 2 stars. And it says, recording sucks, story stupid, or something like that.
Seriously?
Yes. You remember we used to have all those reviews?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they got pulled down.
Did they move them to Audible? And that's why?
I don't know. The Audible has 1 review.
Oh, shit. Okay. Yeah, that needs to be fixed.
And if you want to help us, actually, just going to Amazon reviewing our stuff does wonders for our sales and our profile. And we would thank you immensely for doing that.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. Have a good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Definitely. Good night, guys.